Okay, so that takes us in the notes along to page 5. So just the process of dealing with phasing on your project is to create those copies of your plan views so that you can model the existing parts of the building in those plans. Now, with your 3D views, so here's my, what am I at here? So this is my phase 1 view, so new construction phase. And you folks can see the temporary hoarding on the outside, some existing walls in gray, probably hard to see. Existing walls in gray. Let me turn on shading. And you know what? I just realized I use generic walls for everything. I'm going to use a wall that's got brick on it, so it's very clear to see the new versus the existing. So there you can see I've got, this is a new, or this is not, it's a brick wall, but it's existing. This is a brick wall and it is new. So depending on the phase filter, even in 3D, that will affect how your geometry appears in the view. So now in my 3D view, if I go to show complete, you folks can see that I'm seeing brick now everywhere. The hoarding goes away. The demolished geometry inside the building goes away. And I'm just left with what's going to be here when the project is complete. So with show all, you kind of get to see what's existing, what's being demolished, and what's temporary. So your 3D views have phases associated with them as well. So this 3D view that I'm in right now is a phase 1 view. So I could right click this view and duplicate it. And I would do that. If I'm modeling the existing building, make a 3D view in the existing phase. And I'm going to rename it 3D exist. Can't spell. 3D existing. Then I'll go over to the phase setting for my 3D view and set it to my existing phase. So there we go. We're looking at the building in the existing phase when it was modeled. So you can maybe do the same with your elevations, but keep in mind that your elevations are associated with a phase. And so the annotations for those elevations will only be visible in that phase. So if I want to make some existing elevations, what do I got to do? Well, here, I'm just going to window select all of the elevations. And I'm going to copy them, but I'm going to offset them so I can make sure they won't be on top of each other. Okay, so I'm going to take all the ones, the upper ones here, and I might be able to do them all at once. Yeah, so I could change the phase of all those elevations that I copied, and you can see that there's the copies of them here. Revit's just added a 1 on the end. So if I go to my existing floor plans, I'm going to see some elevations there. You might need them, you might not. You will need the floor plans to create existing geometry, but you don't really need the elevations as well. Floor plans and a 3D view. That's good enough for me for doing existing work. Okay, now we're going to talk about graded regions and phasing. Now, for next week's quiz, we're going to be using the graded region feature, and I want to go over how this graded region tool works. Now, I'm just going to get onto the Learning Hub here so we can download a file so you guys know which file it is that you need for this next segment of the exercises here. All righty. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to download this drawing file, and you folks should do the same, because we're going to build a topographic model of a site. And then we're going to show this graded region feature in how Revit can do calculations of cut and fill on your site. So I'm just going to download it here, and I'll throw it on my desktop. Okay, so I'll just let that sit there for a second, and I will move over to Revit in a moment, and we're going to build a topographic model of a site using this AutoCAD drawing. So to do this, folks, if you got this same file open, you could keep it open, but I think, no, we should start a new file. So I'm going to Control N, and I'm going to start with the architectural template. So Control N, and then search for the architectural template in your template menu here in the new project dropdown. So blah, 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 blah. So there's the standard phase names here, which I will leave. Now, if you remember from last week when we were talking about the elevations of your site above sea level, remember that the project base point and the survey point, the two ways that Revit keeps track of how high things are above sea level, those two icons are at Z equals 0 in the architectural template. Now, if you remember that handout last week, we talked about how we would take the project base point, the circular icon, and move it down 100 feet for our building. When you're modeling a site, you don't do that. You just leave it in place. And then what you're going to do, what does level 1 really represent when we're modeling a site? It's 0 in height, so it really is sea level. So in my projects, when I'm modeling my site, which I always do in a separate file, I'll rename sea level, and you'll see it here in the project browser. Typically, I won't need a second level. Now, if I want to maybe state what the height of my main floor is, I might punch that in here. So I have a level kind of floating up in the sky here that represents roughly where I want the main floor of my building to sit. So anyways, I'll just leave it for now. I'm going to go back into the site plan view. And the reason I'm using the site plan view is because the architectural template, the site view, is associated with level 1, which I've renamed to sea level. Now, the other thing about the site plan is that the view range has been modified. Check this out. The cut plane's been cranked up to 200 feet. Now in BC, it's really easy to get a site that's 200 feet. You can do that in North Vancouver or West Vancouver, right? You can be, you know, right associated with the ocean, but you can get above that 200-foot mark. So I could make this 1,000 feet for both of them. And this will ensure that when we build in our topographic model, we will still be looking down on top of it. All right. So now we're going to import that drawing. So off to the Insert tab, and then Import CAD on the Insert tab. And then wherever you downloaded that AutoCAD drawing, we're going to bring it in. This, I'm not sure if anybody has sort of mentioned this to you before. When you bring in a drawing of your site, a couple things you absolutely have to maintain. You can't let Revit fix lines that are slightly off axis in a survey. It's quite common to get property lines that are close to being, you know, pointing north, but don't let Revit change them. You know, those lines were surveyed, they got to stay where they are. So that's really important. And then other than that, Revit should automatically detect the units from your survey. So you should be just good to go. Open. Okay, so our site survey is not exactly on top of our drawing area here. That's probably okay because we're not too concerned about the elevations and stuff. So it is what it is. We'll leave it. When we go into the 3D view for this file now, we're going to see the polylines for the site. You can see them, they're kind of floating up in space there. So now we're going to build a topographic model of the site. Now these things that are kind of floating down here are the levels for the project, and you can kind of see they're not exactly in the same place as the AutoCAD drawing. So if we wanted to here, you see these little dots here? You can drag those dots, come here, there we go, drag those dots over and stretch the levels so that they are in the same sort of vicinity as our CAD model here from the surveyor. So I'm just going to stretch them over. Is it necessary? Nah, it's not necessary. So that's one level done. And now I could do the same with the other level. Pro tip, you can do it in elevation as well. So I'm just basically stretching the 3D endpoints of my levels over to match where my AutoCAD geometry sits after I imported it. And my elevations, the way they're set up right now, they don't, some of them wouldn't even pick up the CAD geometry. So this is really just an optional step. So now when I look at this thing in 3D, you guys can see that the levels are kind of close to where my site's being modeled. I'm just going to fine tune this a bit more here. It's interesting, they don't kind of snap to each other in 3D, do they? But they would in elevation, I'm quite sure. This is kind of an intro course feature. We talk about this in the intro course, how you want to make sure that your levels are all, they all have their 3D endpoints aligned at each end. Okay, so now we can build the topographic model, and we're going to be talking about phasing here and how phasing relates to the topographic model. So off we go to massing in site and the topo surface tool. All right, so in the topo surface menu here, we'll go to the menu so we can grab that imported CAD file and use it to build our topography. So select import instance and then bring your cursor down and just plunk it on top of the CAD file so you get the bounding box around the CAD file. Okay, when you click on it now, left click, it pops up the list of our layers that are in this file, and we only want the topo layers. Now, sometimes you'll get a CAD file and the layer names aren't, you know, they're not super helpful in terms of figuring out what's in here. So I'm pretty sure I showed you guys that even before you go to make the topo surface at all, so before I even start the topo surface command, you can click on the AutoCAD drawing of the survey, go up to the ribbon and find the query tool, and then put your cursor on the geometry for the topographic lines and look at the layer that this geometry is on in the CAD file. Now, once you've figured that out, you can go back to the topo surface command, go back to the import instance option, and then click on the CAD file, and now you will know which layers the CAD geometry, or the, what do you call it, the topographic information is on. It saves you just a little bit of time. So there's our topography, and we're good. So we'll just finish. So this is the model of our whole like on-site and off-site. Now the site that we're interested in is down here at the bottom, and you can see the building in pink here, and this gray line around the outside is our site. So now when we go back to the site plan, I'd actually like to put in the property lines, but I don't know if you folks can see it. I can't see my property lines anymore because my topo surface is in the way. So now, you know, what do? Well, switch to wireframe. There we go. So now we can see through our topographic model down to our property here. Now, if you remember from last week, if you're going to be doing some regrading of your model, we need to split the model, the topographic model, into two pieces. We need to split the on-site topography so it's a separate object from the off-site topography. So I'm going to go to split surface here on the massing and site tab, split surface. And then Revit says, select a surface to split. This one. So our property lines, like I said, are this gray line here that's just around the house. You can kind of see where it is in the file here. So there's the context, and now I will zoom in. And I'm just going to use the pick tool right there. So in the split surface command, I should be able to put my cursor over one property line, hit the tab key once, and it gets all of the lines from CAD, from the property line, in a loop around the entire property. So now I can just click, and there's my sketch that's going to define where I'm splitting this surface into two pieces. So I can hit finish, and there we go. So now when we look at this thing in 3D, we have two topo surface objects, the one on the outside and the one on the inside. Now, I'm going to get you folks not to do anything in Revit here, and just watch what I'm going to do on the screen here. It'll be on YouTube, so you'll be able to do it for yourselves later. This will be, this exercise, what you're doing right here, will be something that you will have to do as part of next week's quiz. So here you're kind of just, you know, you're getting free marks just by watching this video. So we're going to talk about how the graded region command works. Now I'm going to switch to shaded mode here. So what we need to do is have, and the purpose of the graded region is to allow you to modify the elevation of your property for the design of your building, and have Revit calculate how much dirt needs to be added or removed to the site by virtue of the changes in elevation of the site that you are committing to. So to do that, you've got to select your model of the site and move it from the new construction phase into the existing phase. If you're looking at it in shaded mode, it will turn gray. And I think we showed this last week as well. So now we use the graded region command, and Revit says, hey, you're going to pick a topo surface object. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to just do meet conditions around the perimeter, or do you want to copy the ups and downs of everything inside the site? And that's what you're going to want to do. So now we move our cursor. Don't pick the off-site topo, pick the on-site topo, and just click it. So now what we have here is a copy of the original topography. And you folks look over here, you can see that there's a net cut fill, a fill, and a cut. So what's going to happen is that as we start mucking about with the grades of the site, Revit's going to be doing the math on how much dirt we need to add or remove from the site. Now I'm going to delete just a couple of points here. And now you can see that we are changing the geometry of our topography. And so we are cutting 3,000 cubic feet and filling 140 for a net of 2,900 cubic feet of dirt that needs to be taken away from the site. Now these days we're in metric, so when you guys are wanting to show this, you want to show it in cubic meters. So go to your Manage tab and go to Project Units, and then go Volume, Cubic Meters for your site modeling. There we go. So now you're cutting about 86 cubic meters. So that's about one, is it one truck? I can't remember if a truckload of dirt is 100 cubic meters or 10. I think it's 100 cubic meters is what you can get in a typical dump truck to cart it away from the site. So one dump truck would do the business on this. Now we're not done. I'm gonna go back to the site plan here. Now, in the instructions for next week's quiz, there will be some direct instructions about what you're gonna be doing here. Now I'm just gonna play here so you can see what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I want to set the height of everything here at the same height so that I can get access to the outside ground back here. So this is going to be cut into the hill a little bit, and this is going to be a little bit proud. So here you can see I'm at 127 feet here. I'm at 130 feet here. So I'm going to put all of this at some random height. I'm going to say 132. So I'm going to use the place point command, and I'm going to specify 132 feet of elevation. And I'm just going to add these points around the building here. And you can see the effect. I'm basically creating a cliff at the back of the property, and I'm adding a little bit of dirt on the front. So if we go look at this in 3D, you can see what's happening. I am cutting a big friggin' hole in the back of the property there, and I'm going to be adding some dirt out front. So what's my net? I'm still having to cart away 360 cubic meters, so I got to get in 3 dump truck loads to pull out all that dirt. I'm going to be filling, 800 cubic meters. So, I'm going to need to have some heavy equipment on site to move all that dirt around. But there you can see Revit is doing the business on the cut and fill calculations. So when we're done, there's our site. Now, because of the phase filter, Revit is showing the demolished site along with our newly constructed site. So if we switch to show complete here, now the existing site goes away, and all we are left with is our newly graded, finished, new construction property that you can put your house on. Okay, so that's graded region. Now we've got an exercise here on page 6, the quick Zen phasing exercise. So what we'll do here is we'll take, let's see here, we'll take 20 minutes. So it's 7:45 right now. I will just kind of hang out with you folks as you guys go through the exercise, and I'll get back on the screen here at 5 after 8 with any, and I'll be here to answer any questions that you've got during this exercise as well, which you will be handing in on the Learning Hub as an assignment for tonight. So I'll pause the recording here, mute the mic. You folks can grab that exercise. I will have the drawing, the finished drawing of this thing up on the screen so you can kind of see where you're headed with this. I guess I should say. So I have the sort of finished work up here on my screen, and I want to talk about phasing. Now we're going to be getting into design options here. So you guys won't have the design options component started yet. We'll be getting into that in a moment. But I want to talk about what happens when, so here's our existing floor plan. And we've got this existing wall that's being retained at the top of the floor plan. And so here's that existing wall, it's being demolished. Here's the existing wall at the bottom, which is being retained in a later phase of construction. Now, if you want to create an opening in a wall, now let's say here that this door wasn't being added, and instead we just wanted to create an opening in the an opening in the existing wall here so that we could walk from these offices past this wall into the back of the other side of the building. So let me just show you what happens if you use the opening tool. So keep in mind though, this is an existing wall. We've got some new walls which we've drawn here using design options, and we're going to get into that shortly. So I'm going to go to the architecture tab and grab the good old wall opening tool. So here we go. Going to grab the wall opening tool. There's my wall. Going to put in the opening. And now it says enter start point and ending point of the opening. So I'm going to do an opening such kind of like this, 3 foot wide opening, maybe a little more. There we go. So I'm going to go back, just make sure the opening is the dimensions I want. What in the world? Okay, base offset level 1 top constraint. I'm going to make them so it's unconnected and it's 8 feet tall. Great. So we've got an 8 foot tall opening here created in my new construction phase, and I'm cutting a hole through this existing wall now in this phase, not in the existing phase, in the new phase. There's my opening. Okay, so let's go have a look at the existing floor plan now. Oh, what the heck? So here's the problem with using opening objects in conjunction with phasing. It adds a hole across all phases. So use of the opening tool will create those openings across all phases in your model. So we don't want that. So in the Learning Hub, I've handed out here this rectangular opening instance family, which when we use it here, so I'm going to import that into the model here. Okay, so there's our opening. It's cutting a hole through the wall. And so now if I want to maybe adjust the size of the opening here, you can see it's a family. I can click on it. So I'll make it 3 foot 6 by 7 tall. Okay, so there's my opening. Go back to the existing phase. Ah, look at that. The wall is still there in its entirety. Now there's this funny little separate portion here. That's the portion that's going to be clipped out in a future phase. But at least the wall will be preserved as we, show our existing walls. So in a later phase, this rectangular opening instance family can be used to cut those holes through our walls without damaging the wall in an earlier phase. Okay, so once you've got that stuff drawn for the phasing component of things, we're going to move on and talk about, and I'm going to skip groups for now because that's just it should be review for most of you. And there's just a few bits of best practices that are in that stuff, in those notes about groups for you to review. So we're going to move on to talking about design options. So this is page 14 of the notes, page 14.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can you explain why in number 8 then we put the doors in the existing building? I cannot have. I don't see an opening.
Okay. So let's talk about what happens if you put a door into an existing wall. Now I'm going to delete this opening and I'm just going to grab one of these doors here. Okay, what's going on here? Now remember with this phase filter, we are seeing demolished geometry. So Revit says that, hey, if you're putting in a door, you are demolishing a small piece of wall to facilitate the insertion of this door. So with this phase filter, the existing piece of wall is still shown. No, this particular door style doesn't show a door frame. So what ends up happening is you see the graphic for the door, but there's no frame. Let me show you folks what happens. I've just got a different door family that I can put in here. I just got to load it from my library, so just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so here's a basic metal door, and I'm going to place it in this same location. Now, you can see here I've got the frame on either side, but it's not showing the wall jamb, and that is because of the phase filter. There's that little piece of existing wall. So what you got to do is switch to show complete, and now you are going to see the door jambs because Revit's not trying to show that little piece of existing wall that's getting demolished for the door. So now the question would be, well, hey, I want to show previous construction, but I don't want to show these little demolished bits of wall. Is there a phase filter that will do this? So what we're asking for is for Revit to show new construction normal, i.e. by category. We want to show demolished, or not demolished, existing geometry overridden. So new geometry is normal, existing geometry overridden, demolished geometry not displayed. So let's go into our phase filters list here. So what we're looking for is one that shows overridden for existing, but demolished, not displayed. So I'm looking for, here we go. Previous and new as a phase filter shows new construction, shows existing, but doesn't show demolished. So in this view, I can switch to show previous and new. There we go. Show previous and new. And there we go. So now our demolished walls aren't shown. We get to see our openings the way that we'd like. We can differentiate between existing geometry and new geometry, and we've got the holes shown in the doors. Okay, so let's move on here and talk about design options. Page 14 of the notes. Now, when you want to draw different layouts of something in the same place, often right on top of each other, what we would have done in CAD or other programs is we would have had separate layers that we would turn on and off, or maybe you'd do a save as, so that you could just simply save that separate floor plan idea into its own file. And then you just print off both of them, talk to the client, figure out which floor plan you're going to roll with, and then, keep whichever bit of geometry that you want. Revit has a really, really interesting technique for facilitating this process called design options. So let's look at this dialog box. It's on the Manage tab as well, and it's nicely labeled here, Design Options. Okay, so in this dialog box, now maybe what I'll do here is I'm just going to, I'm going to start with a new project. And you folks don't have to do this, just watch my screen here as I talk you through this process. All right, so I'm just going to throw down a few walls here. And when we use design options, these are like different containers that geometry is going to be stored in. So let's pull up the design options dialog box here. Now, I want to make a few kind of notes about about this stuff here. So I'm actually going to just move Revit over onto my my second screen here. Just bear with me. So I'm going to move Revit onto a second screen so I can do some sketching on top of it. Okay, so you folks are now looking at my Revit screen. It's going to be slightly different dimensions. It's a different resolution because I've actually got this on my iPad, if you can believe it. You can connect your iPad to your Windows computer and use it as a second monitor. Can you believe it? You can actually do that. Plug your iPad into your iOS iPad, your Apple iPad into a Windows computer. So I've got it connected to my Windows 10 computer, and I'm using it as a monitor. And I can sketch on it. It's a really great feature here. So you can see I've just got my my stylus from that I used to sketch on my iPad, and I can sketch right on my Windows screen. You folks should be seeing those annotations there. It's called Duet Display. It's 14 bucks for the app for your iPad, but man, worth it. Now, the reason I want this this is because I want to go into the phasing dialog box here, which I'm just moving onto the screen right now. Not phasing, design options. What am I talking about here? Design options, right here. Okay, so here's the design options dialog box, and so we need to talk about the what's happening once you start to use design options in your project. Now, you're going to have 3 containers of data. Now, you can see here we've got this main model that Revit's talking about. And now we have option sets and then options. So this, all the stuff, it's English. I mean, the words themselves look like they're fairly straightforward, but the concepts are a little bit, I don't know. It takes a little bit of getting used to so you can understand what's going on. So let me start from scratch here. So let's say that you've got a floor plan, and you're not planning to make any changes in most of this floor plan. So maybe you've got some bedrooms and some stairs, and most of the floor plan, you exactly know what the plan's going to be, and there's no deliberations about 80% of the floor plan. But maybe there's part of the plan where you're like, you know what, we don't know exactly what we're going to do for the kitchen layout. So you've got this area here in the kitchen, and we're just trying to figure out some different layouts for the kitchen that we might want to employ. So what's going to happen is that you're going to have these different containers of data. Now, the main container is this one right here, the main model. So that's all of this geometry right here that's not changing. So what's going to happen is once you start enabling these design options, is that here you're going to have an option set, and the geometry for your kitchen is going to be stored in one of these option sets. Now, let's say that you have 3 different ideas for how that kitchen might be laid out. So you have maybe a galley kitchen, and then maybe you want to do maybe an island kitchen, so that's your second option. And then you have another one where it's going to be, let me just say, L-shaped. So you're going to do maybe an L-shaped kitchen. So you've got these 3 different options. Sorry about that. That was my palm tricking out the writing there. So I'm just going to erase. There we go. Okay. So you've got these 3 different plan ideas for your kitchen. So the option set is like a bucket that contains 2 or more different competing ideas for how your building might be laid out. Now, again, this isn't going to be a big part of your building. It's going to be a small part of your building. Most of your building is the main model, and you're not going to be thinking about changing big portions of your building and showing your clients you know a bunch of wildly different plans, right? That would probably be separate projects. But if there's a small area of your project where you're trying to figure out how to present it to your client and you're not sure which direction you're going to go yet, you can use this whole design options setup and create these option sets. Now, as you go along and you come up with maybe one or two option sets that you might use in the project. So one of the option sets might be, like I was saying, for the kitchen. That might be one option set that comes up. You may have another set of competing plans for how you are going to lay out the basement, say. So maybe there's a couple of different ideas for how the basement is going to be planned out. And you need the client to kind of help you decide. So these are option sets. So an option set is kind of like the bucket that your different sets of geometries that would define what the kitchen might be. So you might have 3 design options for the kitchen, and then you might have 2 options for how the basement's going to be laid out. So underneath each option set, we have options, right? So with the kitchen, we've got 3 options. And so with the basement, we define, whatever number of options are that would show how the plan might be laid out for the basement. So for each option, you have for each option set, you have 2 or more options that you might show the client. Okay, now, having scribbled all over my screen here, I'm going to erase all of this and move all this business back to my main monitor. Okay, so we're back looking at the design options dialog box. So let's say that we were, in fact, going to be setting up some option sets for a kitchen. So here's the order of business. You, first of all, give a name for this new option set. So what happens when you hit the option set button, new, is it makes the new option set and makes one option in this set. Now, it just gives them generic names. So what we need to do as soon as we hit the new button for the option set is we need to click on its name right here, option set 1, and rename it. So it's not just a generic name. So first of all, we are renaming the option set. And so what the option set name should reflect is what part of the building's design that's being deliberated about. In this case, it's the kitchen. Now, once you've renamed the option set, now you rename the options underneath it that would kind of describe what this layout is going to be about. So here we said that this first option might be a galley style kitchen. And then we'll make another new option in the kitchen option set. And once we've made the new option, click on it and then rename it. So this one could be the island. Make another option and rename it. And this could be L-shaped. Now, what are these option sets? And what are these options? They're like folders. They're like layers. You can set one of these things current, like set one of these layers current, and draw and put geometry into this layer. if you will. It's maybe a bad metaphor, but I think it'll stick. So just a second here. I just realized my chat window isn't visible, and I want to keep it visible, just in case you folks do get questions here. Oh, and I need to change the resolution of my iPad because the text is really small now. Just bear with me a moment here, folks. Oh, looks like my my iPad does not want to connect anymore. Okay, so I'll just carry on with what I'm talking about here, and I'll just keep an eye on the chat window if anything comes up here.
Can I have one question I want to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, so once the final design of kitchen will be decided, you just leave it like, so basically we will leave it the main one, or we will do something, we delete another one, like how
Oh,
you like
yes. Okay, that's an excellent question, and it shows that you know exactly where this is going. So, folks, what will happen once you or the client has decided on which of these plan ideas is going to win? There's a mode here called accept primary. So here when I click on the option set, so remember this is just a title, a way of grouping all of these different layers that are going to be containing geometry for the plan for this particular design idea. So when I click on kitchen here, you can see that it says accept primary. So what would happen is whichever one of these design concepts was accepted, we would then accept it and the other options would go away. So we're going to get there, and I really like that you mentioned that. Now, we were talking about different plan ideas for the basement. So what we would do is create a new option set, and you can see that straight away it just calls it option set 1. So immediately after the option set's created, we click on its generic title and we rename it. And again, we're just giving it a name so we know what all of these different folders are about. So now I'll make these options, and after the options have been made, I got to go back and rename them. And we'll say that this one's got the entertainment center down there. And then the second option will be two more bedrooms. So 2 bedrooms instead of having the entertainment center down there. And we're going to draw up plans that express these ideas. Now, once you've created these folders, the geometry can be on just one story. It can be on multiple stories. That doesn't matter. What these end up being is like a folder into which you can stick walls, doors, any 3D geometry that you have modeled. Yeah, the Zen exercise, folks, will be added in over this next week. Don't hand it in at the end of the class. It's going to be late. Don't go there. Wait until maybe on the weekend when you've had some time to do so. So having created these option sets and the different options within the set, so really what the kitchen and the basement are, they're just like they're like the label on the filing cabinet that tells you what's in that drawer. So you've got a kitchen drawer, you got a basement drawer, and then each one of these options is like a file folder inside the cabinet into which you've stuffed pieces of trace paper that have the plan concept that you're trying to share. So this actually works pretty cool. So now what we're going to see at the bottom here is that it used to just say main model, and it still does, but now you can see that there's this flyout menu so that you can switch between all of these different design options. So notice kitchen is grayed out. You can't actually select it because that's just opening the drawer. So you open up the kitchen drawer and it's like, okay, which one of these design options am I going to draw? So I'm going to draw the galley option. So get that fired up here.
Can you show again where you found this select, like, because I just see your screen, but I don't see how you found these all the options in the down of the screen.
Okay, just a second here. I am, yeah, because of what happened there with my monitor, my Revit is having a crisis here. What is this? Design options. Okay, I just got to restart Revit.
Another question. So basically, if people, so if we decide that we want one option and we choose to, you said another will go away. What means go away? Like sometimes clients come back all the time, like and say no, I want another one, even if he decided.
No, so what you could do, remember where I showed you folks, and we'll get there, that you could accept the primary option, which would delete all of the other options in that set, right? Like you could go down that road. Don't. If you've got a client who can't make up their mind, you can hang on to those design options, right through to the end of construction. There's nothing forcing you about hanging on to those things. So just hang on to them. If your client's a bit of a mess, don't get rid of those design options. Just keep them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So as I was saying, you can see here that kitchen and basement are, you can't select them directly. That's just like opening up that drawer in the filing cabinet and pulling out the file folder that you want to put your sketches in and choosing it. So here's my galley sketch. And now look what happens. The rest of the model turns gray because I'm not actually working on it. I'm drawing my separate floor plan here. So I'm going to draw, just a wall in here. And then I'll put in some, put in my design here for my kitchen. I'm not even worried about the scale. So I've got some geometry now, which is drawn in this galley option. So now what I want to do is I want to draw the other option for the layout of my kitchen. So my island kitchen. So I switch to the island option and look, all the other geometry disappears. And now I can draw some more walls. So here's my island kitchen, and I'm just going to not worry about scale of anything. There's my island. There's my cabinet here on the back. Okay, so there's my other kitchen concept. And now you'll notice that I can just switch between them. Look at that. Two different floor plans in the same place. Let's go to the third floor plan. So here, it's a blank sheet of paper right now, this L-shaped option. So now, I'm just using lines, by the way, for the to pretend I'm drawing the millwork. Okay, so now I have three different potential floor plans for the layout of my kitchen. Now you notice that one of them is primary. So here's the deal. When you're just working on your project, the so-called main model, where the design of the project isn't really being discussed, you'll just work away, making the changes that you want to the layout of the building, and there's not going to be any deliberation about it. It just is what it is, and it's not being given any concern. Now, as the project unfolds, we're looking at these other design concepts here. So you set one of these sort of sheets of paper, one of these layers current, if you will, and then you can start putting geometry into one of these options within the option set. So design options are like a folder containing layers into which you can put geometry that will form a design idea for the client or just for the design team, and they are all competing for primacy, which one's going to be the main option carried forward. Now you'll notice here that when I switch back to the main model, the plan turns to all black walls again. But only one of these design options is shown at a time. Now down at the bottom here, I can flip between them, so I can work on each one of these design ideas, set it current, and draw away. So here I can continue working on my L-shaped kitchen here. Right, so I've just added those two walls there. And then I can go back to my island kitchen and my galley kitchen and make all the changes that I want to make. But when I'm not working on my kitchen layout, i.e. I'm working on the main part of the project, the main model, a couple things. Number one, you can see I can't seem to work on the kitchen at all, and Revit is only showing me one of these kitchens. So here's the deal. For each option set, one of the options is considered the primary option. So, all things being equal, if we don't make any other changes, it's the primary option that will be shown in your plans. Now, what if you want to print those other options for your client? You need to print from being in main model mode, because otherwise everything's grayed out, right? I don't want to print with gray walls. I want to see black walls when I go to print. So how do I get Revit to show those other plan layouts? Well, probably what you will do is you'll make a copy of your floor plan and copy all your dimensions and text and all that stuff. And this will just be a plan that will exist for a finite period of time, just while these design options are being considered. So copy the floor plan. But now in this copy of the floor plan, I'm going to go to visibility. And now that we've employed design options, we have a new tab. Design options. And for each option set, we are allowed to show which one of the options in that set that's going to be shown. Now here it says automatic. So with our kitchen option set, Revit will show the primary option unless you change your mind. So if I'm in this floor plan, I'm like, yeah, I want to show the island kitchen in this floor plan. Hit OK, and watch out here. Now it's showing the island floor plan. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to rename this thing here. Level 1. This is the island option. There we go. Okay, now if I want to show the L-shaped kitchen, well, I'll just duplicate again. And I'll rename this one so it shows the L-shaped option. Okay, so same thing in this view. It says L-shaped for the plan. I just need to go to the visibility and go to design options and force this view to show the L-shaped option. L shared. I need to fix that. Down to design options. There's L shared. Rename the option. L shaped. There we go. There we go. So you guys are kind of getting a sense of how the design options concept is going to work. Now, where are we at here? We are at 8:40. Let's take a 10-minute break here. We'll come back at 8:50 and we will wrap this thing up. Okay, so as we have seen, once our design options have been created, we've got a flyout menu at the bottom, so you can choose which option in an option set that you're going to work with, or work on the main model. Now, if you are in a view that has forced a particular option to be shown, so here for my kitchen option set, I forced the L-shaped option to be current. So if the view was set to be automatic instead, like this view here, when I switch the option that I'm looking at, this view changes the option that's shown. But here in this view, we're forcing the L-shaped option to be shown. So if I say choose the island option, it doesn't show it. It just grays out the option that I have forced this view to look at. Now, if I'm in main model mode, you can't normally pick geometry that's in an option. There's a checkbox at the bottom here, exclude options, which, if unchecked, will allow you to select geometry that is in an option so that you can make changes to it. And the dumb thing is, the first time that you hit the escape key, which in Revit is all the time, the first time you hit escape, this box will get rechecked. You see that? I just hit escape. So it rechecks the box for excluding options. I find that annoying. I know what I'm doing. If I want to exclude options for the rest of this session of Revit, I should do that. But the first time I hit escape, boom, Revit checks that box again. So it's a bit of a drag. Now, sometimes you'll be working in a plan view, and you got some geometry here, and you're like, which option is this? Which option set is it? And you're like, I don't know. Which one is it? Revit has a nifty feature in the design options area here. This one. Pick to edit. So whatever option set it is, whatever option it is in that option set, just hit pick to edit, and boom. Revit switches you to that option set. So I go pick to edit, pick on that option. Hey, now I'm working on that design option. So it's a really slick option so that you don't have to figure out which option this stuff is. Now, to be honest, if you just pass your cursor over it, with exclude options unchecked, of course, just by passing my kitchen or my cursor over this option in my kitchen, it will show me what it is, but I have to have exclude options unchecked. So that's why this pick to edit thing is kind of cool. I've got a keyboard shortcut for it, PE, so I can just pick some geometry, and there I am working on that option. Now, if you want to copy stuff between your options, you can do so. So let me say that I wanted to grab these two walls here, Control C, and go over to one of my other design options here and paste them in. So now those two walls have been copied over from one option into another. So you can copy and paste stuff between your options. Another thing that you can do when you're working on one of the option sets is that you can bring in geometry from the main model. Now, let me show you what I mean. I am in my L-shaped option, and I'm going to Control X, cut this stuff out, and I'm going to put it into the main model. Maybe not a great idea, but whatever. I'm committed to it now. I'm just going to put that stuff in there. Okay. So I've got intersecting geometry here, but what I wanted to show you is that if you've got some geometry and you're like, you know what? I want to put this geometry that's in the main model, and I've got it selected here. I want to move it from the main model into an option set. So there's this Add to Set button, which will be available when you are in the main model and want to move some geometry from your main model into one of your design options. So I can click it here or click it up top. So the first order of business is to choose which one of the option sets that you're going to copy it into. So in this case, I could copy it to all of my design options or just choose one. So what's going to happen is this geometry is going to be moved from the main model into that particular option set. Oh, I forgot some lines. There we go. So that geometry got moved into my option set now. So you can either draw geometry by having a particular option set current, or if it's already drawn and you want to move geometry from, you know, your regular model into one of these option set folders, you can do it. Just select that geometry and move it in there. Now you'll notice that once I've got some geometry selected inside a design option, I can't add it to another set. I can copy and paste it between sets, but I can't use the add to set feature for geometry that's already in a design option to copy it to another option. Just use Control C and Control V. All right. Looking at page 16. Changing which option is the primary option. So this is done in the design options dialog box. And as you folks have been seeing, I've got these 3 different kitchen layouts. And now the client comes along and says, hey, you know what, we're kind of liking the L-shaped option. That's the one we're going to go with. So in your main set of drawings that could be printed at any moment for either a building permit or for sending on to the contractor, you should have the floor plan set to automatic. So it will always show the primary option. And if the client changes their mind, well, now I can pick the L-shaped option and make it primary. So what's going to happen is that there's going to be an update to your plan that is using the automatic mode for that option set. And now automatically we get the new walls and cabinets and all the other stuff that will appear automatically in the plans now for the main model option, because L-shaped is now the primary option. So you might need to switch around your views here. So what I had is my L-shaped option here. I was forcing this view to show the L-shaped option. Maybe I need to rename this now because I want it to show the galley now. Now the galley option is kind of considered an also ran. You know, the client is now saying, hey, you know what? We're really kind of thinking we're going to the L-shaped option. So here I'm still keeping a plan that still shows that galley kitchen. Now, if you think the deal is done and one of these options is going to rule the day, then you can click on the title of the option set and choose Accept Primary. So what will happen is Revit will delete these other geometries and will also delete the views that were looking at these options. Because there's no point in having a level 1 galley floor plan if that geometry has now been deleted. So when we accept primary, Revit says, you're deleting geometry. Are you sure? So we say yes. And then Revit says, hey, you've got views that are looking at options that they're gone. Now you can get rid of them or you can retain them. So usually you'll delete them. So those other floor plans go away. We're still left with that other option set that we had done. But now we roll ahead and those options have been deleted. Now, if you want to hang on to them indefinitely, I just did a Control Z there, go ahead. There's no issue with hanging on to option sets for as long as you've got that client. So for the rest of the night here, let's go through the that same file that you were working on with setting up the phasing. Now you're going to do the design options component on page 17. So I'm going to go back and show that file now. and we'll just talk about how it's set up and how the design options are arranged in this file. So just some notes there for looking at the page 17, especially at point number 8. So second bullet point, using design options at the bottom, you can either choose to be in the main model or in one of the options in one of the option sets. So you can't work on 2 option sets at once. You can only work at one at a time. So if in your design options, you've got 2 or 3 different option sets going on, you can only work on any one of them at a time from the flyout here at the bottom. So in my example here, you know, I had 2 option sets, one for the kitchen, one for the basement. I can't work on the galley kitchen option at the same time as the 2 bedrooms basement option. I gotta stay focused, just work on one of those options at a time. So that's just what the notes are saying. So for this particular exercise here, this is how the design options are going to be set up. The option set is going to be renamed to be called TI layout. And then you're going to create 2 options inside this set. So there'll be one that will already be created. You need to add one more. So you've got offices at side and offices at back. So draw up like you see in the notes, and then make sure that you've got things set up here. So here, if I switch to offices at back and then offices at side, oh, I've forced my view here. I should be in automatic mode. There we go. So here, I can switch between those layouts at any given time. And if I want to show the offices at back option, I should make a copy of that. And then in this view, I can ask Revit to show that other layout for the offices. So now I've got 2 floor plans, one that shows the offices at the side and the other one which shows the offices at the back. Okay, so that will wrap up the lecture for tonight. This file you can hand in before next week is fine, just so you folks have a chance to work with both phasing and design options in this fairly simple file. All right, so I'm going to mute myself and the recording, and any questions, bring them on.